So how do you level up in Dungeons and Dragons? What's your preferred method? Experience gain or milestone experience? Well, I'm here to tell you there's more than just two ways. I have a third way. We'll call it the DC method here that blends the two of these together so that you can pick and choose what you like about what I'm taking here and put into just one of your own, or make a fourth method for you. I just did two entire separate videos, one for milestone, one for experience gain. And I purposely in those videos made a stake of this is the best. No, this is the best. But this is my true favorite way of how I run experience. Now, full disclaimer, as with any rules that I have that are homebrew or whatever, I have a conversation with my players, and it might fit differently based on what group or life logistical circumstances going on. And after I take all of that into consideration, then I will choose which experience method that works best right now. My current campaign that we're playing, I have milestone, and I'm running it straight up milestone. My last one, I had more time to crunch numbers and all this kind of stuff, so I wanted to blend some things together, and that's where this one came from, which is my favorite and what I'll be doing next time. If I could describe it in a nutshell, it's milestone with a little bit of inspiration with experience gain. So all you milestone lovers out there, pay attention. And you experience people out there, if you want an easier way to do it, then here we go. All right, first up is I don't actually use the rules as written experience thresholds and numbers from rules as written. I have made my own, of course, why not? But my math background is, I couldn't help myself. A lot of the numbers in the rules as written are just, I'm going to put it up here on the chart, and I'm going to put my own up here to show the difference between them, because I think the number flow is a little bit better in my version here, and it just looks nicer. And here we go. So to get to level 2, to level up for the first time, it's still 300 experience. I went ahead and start because, again, I respected the rules as written chart, and it's still balanced out between there. You see what I'm talking about. So I've started off by tripling everything to get to that 900, but 900 leads us to a bunch of weird numbers. And if we start using, so I wanted to round it off to 1000. So at level 3, it takes 1000 experience, and that feels good because 1000, level 3 is a very popular level. Sounds good. So then in order to get from level 3 to level 4, you go from 1000, you need 2000 more experience to have a total of 3000. Then to level up again, you need 3000 more experience to be at a total of 6000. Then it's a plus 4000 to get to 10,000. Now we're at an even 10,000 experience at level 6. Awesome. Now it doubles to 20,000 experience for level 7. And then it's just at plus 20. So plus 20,000 to get to 8, 9, 10. So it goes at 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 108, all the way up to 200,000 at level 16. We've broken past level 5. We're in the last 5 levels now, and we're at 200,000 experience. It goes up by 25,000, another 25,000, 50,000, 50,000. You see the whole thing. So if you like this chart, use it for yourself. But that leads me right into the second thing, which is I do not tell my players how much experience they currently have or how much the thresholds are in the first place. Now, this whole process gets a lot harder whenever I publish books with this in there. This table exactly is in Alkander's Almanac of all things, along with a bunch of other stuff with experience and how to run literally every other part of your game. But this is up to you. I've thought about telling my players how much experience they have and letting them know and seeing that whole process, but that feels a little bit too video gamey for me personally, so I choose not to. But now, how does Milestone come into play with this whole thing? Because so far it sounds like just a bunch of experience gain stuff. So here's the full breakdown of how I run experience in this new hybrid method. So in general, I start off with calculating experience. I'm going to have another chart on the table right here or here. I don't know where it's at, but it basically shows the thresholds for difficulty levels of easy, medium, hard, and deadly across all levels of players. So let's say my players are level 5. I calculate thresholds for each of those 4 ranges. And the beautiful thing is you only have to do this whenever they level up, and then you use that chart forever. And they level up again, you scrap those 4 numbers, and you get 4 more. And how you get this for this hypothetical level 5 group, let's say I have a level 5 group of 4 players. So I would take this number of 250, 500, 750, and 1100. I would take these numbers, multiply each of them by 4. So I would have 1,000, 2,000, you get the idea. And now that I have these easy, medium, hard, and deadly thresholds, I now can assign experience to anything they do, not just combat. I make that very crystal clear with my players. You do not just get experience for combat. You get experience from experiences that your character does. And sometimes that's good or bad. And if you go through something and fail miserably, you still get experience from that. You wouldn't get as much as if you succeeded, of course, but I give out experience across all levels: social, combat, exploration, everything. Players can even earn experience individually and level up faster than their peers. Oh my gosh, I'll save that to the end. So once I have these numbers calculated in a very easy way, I then wait to the end of the session. And in this end of the session, I usually come in here and I record a video for the Dungeon Coach Plays channel about how everything went. And then right after that, I log down how much experience they gain. I do a walkthrough the whole session and think through. I'm like, okay, well, they traveled to, okay, that's easy. So 1,000. And then, okay, they got there though, and they talked to these people and they handled it pretty well. All right, I'll do a medium for that. And then there's another 2,000. And I keep stockpiling up how much experience they gain. Ooh, they had a really deadly combat. Add that in there too. You get the idea. And then once I get this big final number at the end, I divide it by 4, and that's what each of my players get. I will do some more complicated calculations if I had a bunch of NPCs along for the ride, where they have some PCs that's following them or helping them, or they weren't the main stage play. It depends, right? But that's where a lot of wiggle room goes. And sometimes if a medium encounter was 2,000, but I was like, oh, it was kind of hard, I'll do 3,000, and I'll just round it off, because that's what this entire thing's about, is a pulse check for you as a dungeon master to see how fast they're leveling. And then once I have all these numbers calculated and I see, and I compare it to, and I give out the experience to each player, and I have a little chart of each different player, because they can level at different rates. We'll get into that. I write it down to each player and I see their threshold. And once they hit those threshold numbers that we just talked about, boom, they level up. But now wait, this is where the milestone comes in, because it's not as simple as boom, they level up. So basically there's 2 modes going on here. As they're playing, they level up and I calculate their experience. And as they get close, ooh, it gives me an alert. A Spidey sense goes off and I'm like, oh, now it's a good time for them to level. And then I can use my milestone brain to figure it out. The best of both worlds, which is what I want to get into about how this can actually save you. And it takes a lot of those in the other 2 videos I made about the pros and cons. It takes a lot of those cons, and because you're using both methods, it kind of washes away a lot of those cons. And we got to talk about how players level up at different rates. Time out. If you're liking all this level up stuff, you need to check out Alkander's Almanac of all things. It is out and live and available now on my website. Links down in the description. It is an expansion to 5th edition, and this is just a small excerpt of chapter 1, the general application of the game. And there is stuff for combat, social encounters, exploration, literally hundreds of rules for every part of your game that you can pick and choose from, because with all the new stuff that's coming out, there's going to be some stuff you like and some stuff you don't. And that's how Alkander's Almanac is purposely written, for you to pick those rules and give you little options to be able to tweak and change them to fit you. I'm gonna keep doing videos like this to give you a glimpse and insight into Alkander's Almanac and some of the actual applications and full explanations of alongside the book, to give you the big picture of absolutely everything. Comment below what different types and chapters from Alkander's Almanac you might want to see next. But for now, let's get back to the video and keep leveling up. So now for the big 2 things to talk about here of why there are almost no cons to this system, and you can mix and match it to where there's no cons for you and based on how you want to run this for your group, and how players can level up at different rates. So I think this gives you the best of both worlds, because a lot of those cons that I talked about in the other videos don't happen here, because a lot of times in Milestone, players will be like, oh, do we level up yet? Because they know that you're just choosing when they level up, and they're just kind of like, they'll ask you a lot. But the numbers, and I can just blame the math, and ultimately which blames them, because it's based on their actions. Y'all just keep doing stuff, and y'all are getting close. You know, I can just point to the numbers, and my hands are clean, because it's not me doing it, it's the numbers. Because your players don't know where those thresholds are, and they don't know how much experience that they're getting, it's totally fine, and they just go along with it a lot more. And those weird moments in the cons from just experience leveling, where they just spontaneously level up in the middle from point A to point B after fighting some kobolds, it just happens now because the number got hit and bing, it just yay, and it wasn't a cool connected story moment. And if you don't care about leveling up moments, then you can ignore that and just keep that part experience gain. But it solves that problem, because I get to have a good pulse check, and then I choose a cool thematic way for them to level. Best of both worlds. Okay, so now how do players level up at different rates? I thought about stopping the video here and having a whole separate video that I could go into much more detail on, but this is how I run the experience in the way that my favorite way, so I do want it to be a part of this. Let me know if you want even more on this, because there's a lot I could talk about. But sometimes I will start campaigns off with players at different levels. Sometimes when a player joins, like just happened in my current homebrew campaign that's happening right now, a player just came back and joined. He originally was part of the group, real life reasons, he left the group, and then he came back to the group, and he came back, everybody else was 5th level. I introduced him at 4th level, and it made sense from a story point. They'd gone through more stuff than he had. They've now leveled up to level 6, he's leveled up to level 5, and at some point during this level 6, he'll catch up, because it's fine. And I say it's fine because just because you start off with players at different levels doesn't mean they have to always be that way. And that comes from talking to your players to see if they're okay with this. And you don't want to always have one player just be behind. That might feel bad. But again, talk to your players about all of this type of stuff, because they might not like the experience level system, but a lot of times it does motivate them in certain ways and reward them for playing, which is what I'm going to get to with this tally point experience system. So again, I'll save the tips and tricks of running different leveled characters within a campaign for that. So this tally point system comes directly from Matt Mercer himself. This is not edited or homebrewed in any way. I truly, truly loved it, and I have used it for years, and I don't see any reason to change it. The math of it works out. It feels good. I love it. So he at some point tweeted about it, I think, how I found this out, and I've been playing with it. I love it. I don't know if he still does it in his new campaign, but here we go. How it works is you get a tally point for progressing the plot forward, taking risks, doing big things, playing the game in big ways, taking big swings, whether it's risks, rewards, failures, whatever else. You get tally points for interacting with the world in big, meaningful ways. A lot of times this will progress the plot forward in a cool and new, interesting way. Taking big, huge moves, self-sacrificing moves, character progression towards their goals and aspirations, role-playing characters heavily, whatever you want to do. A lot of these are synonymous with giving out inspiration. And a lot of times I do run inspiration, and I do run this tally point system, and I do try and find a line of which types of things that I award inspiration for, or experience point gain. A lot of times I will have experience point gain more slanted towards progressing the plot forward and making big moves that help things move forward, and then kind of taking risks and stuff. And I have inspiration be more heroic or epic moments, or big role play moments, or other things. But that's a whole separate concept of how you handle this out. But big moments, and that can be different for each different type of person. But anyway, whenever you get this tally point, one tally point is worth 15 times your level. So at level 1, a tally point's only worth 15 experience, but at level 2 it's worth 30. At level 3 it's worth 45. So each tally point you get as you level up, again, as you saw the progression of levels, it balances out really nicely. So after I calculate the experience for the entire group, I then calculate the tally point experience. A lot of times I will make tallies live while we're playing, and I'll just put a tally mark down while we're playing, like, oh yeah, yep. I'll put tally marks down when something cool happens on a little index card that I have on the side. And when I do my pass through and I think through everything about what did what and who did what and all that kind of stuff, I'll put tally marks down there for them. And then I calculate at the end, and everybody has different experience numbers. So everyone has around the same, and usually you do level up at the same time. And God forbid there's some reason why one player who's really pushing the game forward, really leading things, really taking risks, really biting out a big piece out of the game, yeah, they level up one session earlier than everyone else, which, if anything, is just props to them and incentivizes players and respects players that are playing well. And whenever I say well, like playing the game well, that looks different for lots of different people. A very shy player who doesn't really do a whole bunch, if they do something that's outside of their comfort zone and they do, I'm going to be more likely to give that player a tally point. Basically, you have to have a really good pulse check of your group to do this and know which players are going to be like, oh, I'm just going to keep doing stuff. And you might have to talk to those players, or maybe you don't use this system for certain groups that have players that would really just run away with it and try and level up before everybody else. Because the times where I've chosen to do this are for groups that it fits very nicely into, and I like to give rewards out. And I use tally points as like a session recap type thing on the next follow-up. So whenever I do my session recap, I'll have the notes of those cool tally mark moments. In fact, in some campaigns, I've even called them, here's the big moments from last session. And they know a lot of times these moments are connected to tally points. And they're like, oh, wow, yeah, no, that is true, yeah. And the players get to engage and respond with this. And I've even had players interject and be like, you know what? Oh, what about this moment? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so right. And I'll add a tally point because the other players are hyping and shouting each other out. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of comments about how, oh, I would hate this as a player, or all this other types of stuff. And for you, if you were the people that don't like this or think that this is weird or bad or whatever, I probably, wouldn't use this if you were a player at my table, because you would voice that concern in some way. And I'd be like, okay, that's fine. We'll do one of these other things that I've listed off in all of the many ways that I have to run games. But maybe if you were a part of my group, and I truly do feel like I would have a good pulse check of if you were in my table and we had this worry and this issue that we all talked about, we're like, all right, no, let's try it out. And you embrace this opportunity. I think you would see some cool moments, and you would feel some cool hype rewards from getting these tally points of engaging in the world. And I have seen this motivate and inspire people. I've had conversations with one player was just lagging behind everybody in just a little bit of way. So I have a conversation with them about what different types of things. And it gives me another good pulse check as a dungeon master to see who's not engaging with the world maybe as much. And I want to see if that player's just a shy player and everything, maybe it's fine, and I will give them more hype moments for the smaller stuff they do, or throw things at them in the way that they kind of want to play the game and engage with that. Because anytime I've used this, has always been nothing but cool moments at the table to give people props that other players at the table would also be like, yeah, no, they need props for. But the large majority of the time, they all level up together anyway, and if they do level up apart, it's only one session apart. Also, as a disclaimer, where I've used this the most effectively was when I ran a D&D club, a high school campaign with a bunch of high schoolers, and this motivated and incentivized them to come and show up to the sessions. And if you didn't show up, you didn't get experience. But again, that was for that group. And in my normal groups where I have the people come over to the house and we have our normal D&D sessions, I do give them experience and I don't hold them back if their character doesn't show up or anything like that. So again, it completely depends on your group and you as a dungeon master. But I'm sure I'll get a bunch of comments down there, and I might make a follow-up video on how to run characters at different levels and the whole concept of managing this, because it is a spicy topic. And if you want more spicy content, check out all my stuff in the links down below. Alkander's Almanac is full of spicy content and everything that I do over on Patreon. Check all that stuff out. Stay creative. Think outside the box. Peace.